This is the last of the 4-part session on modern Jewish thinkers. So I did the first one, and Rav Stephen and Shira each gave one as well. And this is going to be the 4th. I like to do one man and one woman when I can, so that worked out well for those who were here for the one by Ruth Calderon. That was really a lot of fun. Maybe I'll do her another year because it was so much fun reading one of her stories. Just going to put people on mute. Put you on mute, Howard and Carolyn, for a moment. You can always unmute if you have something to say. We are going to be talking about this book. It's a really loaded book. This is the book. It's called Reason to Believe by Rabbi Chaim, or Howard in English, but Rabbi ChaimJachter. I don't know if people have heard of Rabbi ChaimJachter. I had this book on my shelf for a couple of years, and I really wanted to read it. So because he's a wonderful man and rabbi and thinker, and it says Rational Explanations of Orthodox Jewish Faith. That is the point and the purpose of this book, that he felt compelled to write it. Now I want to say, I know that usually in my classes, the way I do things is I offer an idea or I show a text and we discuss it. And if we do that, first of all, people might literally say, I don't agree with that, that doesn't hold water for me, and that's fine.
This is Dr. Lotz's office. We are open now.
Okay, Edith, I'm putting you on mute because we could hear your conversation. Welcome, George. Oh, welcome, Debbie. So we're not going to have discussions about, I'm happy to answer any clarification questions, but we don't have time because it's not going to be, a 4-week session on this book. But we don't have time for people like, well, because not everybody's going to agree with what he considers compelling arguments. I accept that from the get-go. In fact, I didn't agree with every single thing that he wrote in there. But I still found it to be a beautifully researched and laid out book. And I'm going to do my best in the time that we have to share as much as I can about the book. I was going into a deep dive at the beginning, and then I realized I'll never get through the book that way, teaching it. And even without that, I still have a lot of places where I've marked, and I have so many places. I use a lead pencil and a ruler when I underline, because I like it when things are neat. I have so many things I underlined, I doubt I'll be able to get to even half of them. But we'll see, let's see what happens. First, let's speak about who Rabbi Jachter is. This is from Wikipedia. An American Orthodox rabbi, okay, we knew that. He's a dayan, that's a rabbinical court judge, an educator and author. He wrote 4 books, I think. He sits on the Beit Din of Elizabeth, New Jersey as a dayan, and most importantly, as a get administrator. He is one of the most respected get administrators. Everybody know what a get? Does everybody here know what a get is? Yeah. Somebody does not know. Oh, hi, Rona, or Rana. How do you pronounce your name? I wasn't sure.
Rana, like rhymes with Donna.
Oh, Rana like Donna. Okay, it looks like it, so I get that. So if somebody does not know what a get is, please let me know. But it's very non-trivial to have somebody who administrates a get who everybody accepts. Because the problem, what's the ramification if somebody does not accept that a woman has received a get, that the get is kosher? Any ideas of what the halachic ramifications could be for that? Wait, 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
Myrna and then Elaine, no problem. Yeah, Myrna.
The woman can't marry again if she wants to marry halachically.
If she wants to marry halachically, she might not be able to marry again. Elaine, what did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't think she would even date without a get.
No, that's not exactly what I was going to. Yes, what I meant more was that if somebody is not accepted as a get administrator in all circles, so for the woman it would be enough, but maybe there would be circles who wouldn't sadly accept it. So she may be willing to date, and maybe even the other man would be willing to date her, but their children, by some people, would be considered mamzerim. Mamzerim. I don't know, how do you say mamzerim in English?
Bastards.
Is there no better word than that?
Oh, that's the word.
Illegitimate. That's another word.
It's not illegitimate.
No.
There is no such thing in Judaism as illegitimate.
That's true.
Because a child who was born to a non-wedlock couple, nothing. There's no There's no stigma. There's nothing halachically. That would be illegitimate, right? Am I
Uh,
right?
Right.
This is not that. Mamzer has its own very special status. By the way,
Really?
he talks about Mamzerim in his book. Maybe I'll get to that. And anyway, so he felt it was really, really important to help this situation and help as many women as they can to get, it's not on the man, by the way. If the man has a child and is still married, has a child with another woman, that child is not a mamzer, just saying. Men are allowed to have more than one wife according to halacha. I'm not talking about the fact that today, rabbinically, it's frowned upon, but I'm just talking about halachically, biblically. There's a big difference if a woman didn't get a get and she has a child with another man. If a man has with another woman, no problemo, dude. That's the way it works. No problemo halachically. I'm not talking about socially. Okay, so Rabbi Jachter at some point really felt that this was very important, and he decided to step into the fray, into that area. And he not only is a well-respected, well-trusted
administrator.
yeah, administrator, thank you. But there was a word in Hebrew, misader get, like misader kiddushin for a wedding, misader get. I was just thinking, when I think of the word in Hebrew. And not only that, but he is warm, empathetic, caring, and compassionate. And that is so important, especially since I won't name names, but other organizations that give gets, they're fine, but they're not necessarily caring, warm, and compassionate. And it's a very hard moment. Okay, so that is what he's known for very much. He also is an expert on the laws of Jewish divorce. He chairs the Aguna. Aguna is a woman who was not given a get. She's literally chained in the marriage because her husband refuses to give her a get. That's the most common situation. He chairs the Aguna Prevention and Resolution Committee of the RCA, Rabbinical Council of America, consulting rabbi for over 70 Eruvs across the United States. Everybody here know what an Eruv is? If somebody does not know, please let me know. I'll be glad to explain. Everybody know here what an Eruv is? I'm sorry, settlement? No, that's a yishuv. Settlement? No, an Eruv. Okay, so good, I'm glad. Yeah, allows you to carry. Yeah, Myrna, but what does it look like? What does an Eruv look like?
Something which encompasses a specific area. It could be a string, but you have to check it every week to see that it didn't blow down, didn't get knocked down.
Yeah, so I don't know if everything has to be, but yeah, so generally today what happens is that we have telephone poles and wires, so then we just put our mark on it and it's done in a way. And the reason for it, it's not voodoo. There are logical reasons in halacha. It has to do with creating a space that's all encompassed, that's called a reshut hayachid, or that's like it belongs in one domain. So you're not supposed to carry on Shabbat, not on Chag, not on holiday, not on Yontif. You're not supposed to carry from a reshut hayachid, a personal domain, to a public domain. So an Eruv is a way of making a public domain into a place where you can carry, which is a game changer. Because like when I was growing up in Boston, there was no Eruv, so you don't go out, you don't bring kids to shul, you don't bring strollers, you can't carry a raincoat or a tissue. You have to put a key on a pin. But when there's an Eruv, you can share meals more easily, you can bring children. So he does that as well, and he flies a lot to different states to do that. He's also the rabbi of Sha'arei Orah, the Sephardic congregation of Teaneck, and a faculty member of the Torah Academy of Bergen County. I'm sorry, author of 20 books. Did I say 4? Mistake. Author of 20 books and over 1,000 online and journal articles. He writes and lectures extensively on contemporary topics in Jewish law and thought. So, does anybody have an idea, like, are you getting any picture of who this person is? Because the whole thing is about modern Jewish thinkers, not just about his book. He wrote 20 books. I picked one of his books. Any thoughts on what picture are you getting about? By the way, he's rabbi in a Sephardic congregation.
Yeah.
He himself is not Sephardic, right? He himself is not Sephardic. I'm sure he follows Sephardic custom in his shul. So from everything that I've told you so far, does anybody have a thought about, Debbie, it says George, so you're confusing. Just kidding. No, unmute, Debbie. Here, let me do it this way. Wait 1 second. How about this? Maybe this will help. Does that help you? Okay, you're unmuted. Yeah.
My thought is practical. Practical.
He's a practical person.
Yeah, whether it's
Nice.
divorce, whether it's an arrow, things
Yeah.
that make people's lives really impact individually
Really?
and as a
Yes.
community.
So putting his thought into action to be
Mhm.
practical, to practically find solutions to things that are problematic in society. And as I said, he couples that with a warm and caring and compassionate manner, which is so important. Does not hold himself above anybody else. He is so approachable. Treats me with great respect, even though I'm such a baby rabbi compared to the years that he's been, and he always gives me, tremendous respect and dignity. Yeah, Myrna.
Where did he get his smicha from?
Ooh, that's a good question. One second. He earned his bachelor's and master's, very convenient that I copied it from Wikipedia. He earned his bachelor's and master's degree at Yeshiva University and has rabbinical ordination from Rabbi Isaac Elchanan Theological Seminary. I assume that's YU.
It is.
He learned there and was shamash, which is a very honorific, not just title, but position, to the Rav. Rav Soloveitchik. Near the end of the Rav's life, by the way, near the end of Rav's life, he had some form of dementia. So crazy to even think about the Rav of dementia. So the fact that he was allowed to be so close to him, I think, was meaningful. Sue?
So his ordination was from JTS.
No.
YU.
It was from YU. I
Yeah, I
thought
said the Isaac Elchanan Theological Seminary.
oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah,
hear.
I know, you heard Theological Seminary, you
Right,
thought
right.
JTS. I know, we don't think of YU as a seminary, that's why, but that's what it says. I just wanted to quote, yeah, Elaine.
Yes, what is your personal interaction with him? Your personal experience with him?
Well, I have to say, I am divorced, and he was my Mesader Gitin, so I can tell you, and even though it was the right thing to do, and I'm on good terms with my ex-husband, thank God, but even so, it was still difficult. It's a difficult moment, even when it's absolutely the right thing to do. Still ripping apart something that was hopeful and loving at one point. And he was so I first met him that way, because when I turned to Rav Stephen, he said, okay, you need to do this with Rabbi Jachter. He's the right person. I didn't know him. I'd never heard of him. Or maybe I heard of him, but I had no interaction with him. So as a person who had a get, he was extremely caring, compassionate, and I remember the warmth and how he explained everything, and he never treated, anyone differently in the room. It's a male-centric room, because you have the person who's doing the get, you have the scribe, you have witnesses, and he recommends to the women that they should bring at least one person with them so they won't feel so alone and isolated as a woman. And I've been in other situations as a rabbanit where I've accompanied couples to a get where they haven't always been quite as, they were fine, they weren't mean or anything, but they didn't explain, they did things perfunctorily and a little too business-likey, and forgetting that there's a whole level of compassion that you need, because these are real people in the room going through something difficult. And as a rabbi and rabbanit, I now see him professionally, and we speak professionally, and we meet sometimes in the room where a get is taking place professionally. I would say that's most of my interaction with him. Thank you for the question.
You said he's a dayan, and maybe you
Yes,
said
a
this
judge,
before.
yes. Means he can
Right.
be on a rabbinical court, a Beit Din. It means that in addition to smicha like I got, which is toreh, yoreh, yoreh, it's yadin, yadin, from the word ladun, which is to judge. So you're learning a huge area more of halakha. I'm sorry.
Right.
A whole huge
And
area, yeah.
is he on some kind of Jewish court or?
I'll tell you. Noted as he sits on the Beit Din of Elizabeth, New Jersey as a dayan.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So he actually resolves cases with rabbinic law, right? Not secular law. He's not a judge in a secular American court.
Right.
He's a
No,
judge in a rabbinic court. And I can tell you, there is no doubt in my mind that he is fair, that he listens to the people, shows compassion. He is the judge you'd want on any case, because you know that he'll both be honest, his integrity is above dispute, but he will also be caring, thoughtful, compassionate, and treat the people in the room as people. So that's who Rabbi Jachter is, which I think it's important for you to just know who this person is. Why am I bringing him? Why? It's not just because the title interested me, although the title did interest me. And there is no way I'm going to get through the whole book, and I don't know if it'll interest you to read the book, but I wanted to give you a taste of what's in this book. Okay. All right. So he sets up the book first as questions. Why did he write the book? What was interesting to him? So I'm going to do a lot of quoting of his words because he wrote it beautifully. Not everything, but a lot of it. It is the question of all questions and the issue of all issues. Is there a God? And did God author the books of the Torah? That is the question that he is going to attempt to answer. And also, so the way he's going to do that is by giving many different kinds of explanations, some rational, some experiential, some historical, some emotional. And he finds many different ways of attacking this question. And also, he even spends time on, but the Torah has so many difficult issues. Can they be resolved? Like, how could it be that even if you accept that it's divine, what about like killing Amalek? What is that all about? Or what about mamzerim, that the children of women who were not divorced and had a baby with another man, which is a bastard, but let's just call them mamzerim. Now you know that new word. Like, why is it their fault, and how is it that they're held, like, for the rest, that they can only marry another mamzer and have children that way, and the children of mamzerim? I don't know. It's very difficult and complicated. By the way, one of the reasons he became a Mesader Gitin is not only to prevent mamzerut. Everybody follow me when I say this? To prevent that happening, but also when cases are brought before him that, we think this is a mamzer, he will work, because he chairs that committee, he will work on making sure that as few children as possible of these unions will end up being in the category of mamzer. He will use every loophole in halacha that he can to prevent it. So I think this goes to what Debbie said. He's practical. So when you say someone's practical, I feel like it's great. I'm not saying in a bad way, but it's, I want to make sure we understand that that's resting on this huge amount of knowledge and caring. And I would call it, yes, practical in the sense that he turns his belief and knowledge into action. That's the way I would say it. And into social action, because he wants to make sure that our community is healthier and stronger and has many fewer social issues. And these are burning social issues. Women who are in chained marriages or didn't get, look, if you have a secular Jewish woman who had a Jewish marriage or is considered married for whatever reason, received the ketubah, what did she know, let's say, she just got it. Or maybe she was religious or observant or a little bit, or her parents wanted her to. And now it's 20 years later and she doesn't even care about the get. So one of his missions is, somebody brings it to his attention to, in a very careful and compassionate way, to bring the woman along so that she'll understand why it feels so important, but in a way that she'll be able to hear it. Because if she's secular and doesn't believe and doesn't care, you have to find a way to get to her. Everybody following me on that? So the practical, I love that you use the word practical, Debbie, and I want to make sure that we all know that it's much, much broader and deeper than just practical. Okay? Okay. And he also has a chapter in here, I'm going to get to all the chapters, I hope, about science. How do you resolve science and Torah? Right? Some people say, well, I can't believe in the Torah because I know by science and by learning about history and archaeology and anthropology that the world does not exist for 6,000 years. It actually exists for billions and gazillion years. So how can we resolve that? So, and is the first chapter of Genesis, how does that square with science? So he addresses that as well. And what I really love is that he gathers information and did research. Amazing. I mean, I can't even tell you, his footnotes are fantastic because they show you the source of every single quote or every single text that he relies on, whether it's a text from our Tanakh, meaning more than the 5 books, our whole Bible, or if it's a quote from somebody, it could be from a historical journal or archaeological journal. It could be from a shoot, which is a halachic answer to a question. It could be from a quote from some of our greatest sages of the last couple of centuries, or I guess last century, about what things that they said, and it crosses from Ashkenazic to Sephardic. It's just so broad. He did an amazing job of putting together so many different, one second, Myrna, so many different sources in this book. It's just phenomenal. So I'm trying to sell you, I'm not trying to sell you on this book, I'm just telling you that I found it really thoughtful and well-researched. Yeah, Myrna.
How important is it for a woman who's in this chain marriage to get a get if she's past childbearing age? She's 60 and she's
That's such a
married.
great question. So that goes to, could she marry somebody else? That's why it would be important.
Yeah.
That's why she'd be chained. Plus she feels, right? She's feeling chained. So I'd say it's double. But thank you for that question. Okay. So again, going back to the, yeah.
There's no answer for that. Is that still very important
Well,
halakhically?
let's talk about that. So
Later.
it's important halachically if she wants to get married Jewishly, right? So yeah, if she, and her personal feeling. Halachically, if she'd want to date or get married, she needs a get. And she's chained. She's chained. It's awful. It's a horrible feeling that he has so much control over her. But thank you for that question. Okay, so we set forth in this book compelling reasons why Orthodox Jewish belief is far more reasonable than secular perspectives on world and Torah. Those were his first two sentences in this whole book. And then he goes on to 5 chapters. So I'm going to try to, if I can, summarize each chapter for you as much as I can. Everybody with me so far? We get the premise of the book, what he's trying to do. I'll just read you the last paragraph of the introduction. Orthodox Jewish belief is far from antiquated. In fact, modern times offer new reasons to affirm the traditional belief system of the Jewish people. We hope that readers of all backgrounds will find many opportunities in this work to deepen their level of belief and commitment to God and to God's Torah. Okay, the first chapter is called Emunah. What does Emunah mean?
Faith.
Faith, beautiful. Emunah, what is faith? Okay, when we say Emunah, what we mean generally is faith in God or belief in God. Emunah, faith, which for the Jew means belief in Hashem and in the divine origin Torah. Remember, those are his two issues. That's what he's trying to show in this book. Reason to believe. Reason to believe that God exists and reason to believe in the divine origin of the Torah. Now, when I say Torah, I mean the 5 books of Moses. The others, like Joshua and Kings and et cetera, all the way to the end, there's many, 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 many. All of those, we believe that they come, hi Barbara, welcome. We believe that it's divinely inspired and I guess affirmed by God to put in, but we don't believe that it was given to Moshe on Har Sinai, on Mount Sinai. Everybody with me on the difference? There's a big difference between biblical, meaning the 5 books of Moses, and that's what we believe was divinely given by Hashem, by God. Okay. He also sends you to different YouTube videos that might give you some more insight. So, and that's, from Aish, and he quotes Lubavitcher Rebbe and Rav Soloveitchik, and he just goes kind of not all over the place, but people that he really believed in and felt they had something. So he says like this. There is one way of looking at Judaism, a very common way, and that is laid out in Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim, which is a love story or a love poem. And that is that Shir HaShirim actually is referring to love and marriage between God and the Jewish people. Has anybody ever heard that? That Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, is not an erotic love poem between, any man and woman, let's say, but it's specifically about the love between. Yeah, so that's read on Pesach. Each of the 3 biblical holidays, we read a different Megillah. That's the Megillah that we read on Pesach. And if you think about it, Passover, is when God kind of married us, right? Took us out of Egypt. And then you could imagine Har Sinai, Mount Sinai was the chuppah, and that's where we made our covenant with God. And the contract was the Aseret HaDibrot, the luchot, the tablets. But marriage can only succeed. I did quote some of them at the beginning. I actually, quoted, I took some of his quotes, so I'm going to read some of them too. Marriage between us and a Kadosh Baruch Hu, which is God, can only succeed. A marriage can only succeed, and look how this speaks so beautifully to what Rabbi Jachter believes in, right? He believes in the institution of marriage, and he understands a lot about it by being a Maseder Gitin, can only succeed if both parties are committed and choose to commit. They have to choose to commit and work on commitment. Just close here. Okay. Now, he goes on a premise that, based on rabbis, that every person is born with the natural inclination to believe in God. And he bases this on Maimonides. I'm not going to give you all of it. I mean, you can read the book if you want all of it. But that is what he believes. And here's another quote, not just Maimonides, the Meshech Chochmah, I don't remember what his name is, bases it on Maimonides' teaching. The Jewish soul is naturally inclined with an intense desire to also fulfill God's will. And then he goes into how is it that we recognize and believe in God? What can show us that we have a belief in God? And he says like this: if God revealed God's self completely in the world, like we always knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, scientifically in every way, that God exists and that God is omnipotent and all-powerful and is the one that, orchestrates things, then we're not choosing to enter into this relationship. We would be compelled to do it. We wouldn't have any choice because it would be so obvious to us. At the moment when they stood at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai, with the thunder and the flashing and hearing God, at that moment at least, it felt like, well, of course God exists. And if that moment happened for every single minute of our lives, we wouldn't need the book. We wouldn't need anything. So God chooses to hide part of God's self so that we have to work at finding God, finding where God can reveal God's self, and then choose to both commit ourselves and to keep on looking for this our entire life. But on the other hand, if God stepped back so much that we couldn't discover God anywhere, then we would have no chance to achieve this relationship. So it's somewhere in the middle. And he says really clearly later in the book, don't bother trying to prove scientifically. Don't waste our time trying to prove in a scientific manner that God, there's no real way to prove that. So we shouldn't waste our time on that. And he really believes that we need to work in our life at this relationship to discover God. And he quotes, Reb Soloveitchik, I think, said this, that there's two different ways that we can discover. There are people who recognize the divine truth with something called Tviyat Ayin recognition. I'll explain that in a minute. And another way is simanim. A siman is a sign or a mark. And he says that's two different ways of appreciating God. One of them is that your soul gets it. Like that this world, this amazing, complicated world, and the laws of nature, and the way the human body works, and the way animals are, and everything that's so interacted, and that this world could even exist, must be that there is a divine being that brought this into creation in some way and made it happen, and then it has evolved over the years. And another way is when we see flashes, simanim, signs that show us that God must be in the world, and many people, not everybody, but many people have felt that way at different moments in their lives. And he thinks that it has to be a combination of both of them. Now, there's a story, some of you may know it, about Elijah, Eliyahu Hanavi, who was trying to prove to Bnei Israel, to the Jews, that God exists. And God came in an earthquake, and God came in thunder, and God came in a wind. And in all of those, the people said, like, no, that's not a proof of God. Until God came in what he calls a kol dmama daka, a still small voice. And that God is found in the still small voice. And here I want to give you a parable that Rabbi ChaimJachter gives. He says, when he's walking down a very busy, noisy street, and his cell phone, I'm not talking about the cell phone vibrating, but it could be vibrating, but listening to the sound of his cell phone, he won't hear it because there's so much noise going on around. He's not going to hear a cell phone. He said, that's what it's like to try to find God in our noisy world. Noisy doesn't necessarily mean physical noise. It means a noise of the internet, of people saying things, of wars, of things happening, of illness. There's so much noise going on in our world that we have to look hard and find those spaces where we can hear God's still, small voice. And he believes, and I think this is true for all relationships, it's in the searching and the hard work. That's where the connection is actually made when we do that. Okay, I'm going to add another thought here. When Hashem appears in an obvious manner, the impact is fleeting because it does not involve any effort on the part of the people. And think about it for yourself. The difference in your connection and your, I don't know, I can't think of the word, your commitment is going to be different in something that you're very invested in, that you've put time and effort in. Like, that's one of the reasons why we so encourage volunteering in the show. Because theoretically, we could have a team that does everything and hands it over on a silver platter. But it's when people come and volunteer, which Ruby has said, like, I want to volunteer, whether it's setting up a program, even setting up kiddush, or it's helping find people who might, or creating community within the bayit, and this is true for anybody, I'm just using the bayit, HIR, as an example. But it's when people work on something and do something, that's when they feel the connection. This is true for almost any initiative. You feel much more connected when you also put effort in. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Now, who here knows who Rav Lichtenstein is, Rav Aaron Lichtenstein? Anybody heard of him? You know, you've heard of him or not? Others have heard of him.
Really, I have an interesting story about him. His father, Yechiel Lichtenstein, used to be my teacher, and when he was sick, he'd send his son in Aaron to be the substitute. I didn't really appreciate it. His sister was in my class also, Hadassah Lichtenstein.
Wow, amazing. So he married the daughter of Rav Soloveitchik, which, so you can see, I don't think it was for the name. I think it's because they really connected. Brilliant people, God-fearing people. Rav Aaron Lichtenstein was a brilliant, brilliant sage. He actually received a doctorate from Harvard English department. I think he had a chair name for him or something like that. I'm not sure. And he was an unbelievable God-fearing, religious, observant Jew who was one of the founders of Yeshivat Har Etzion, Gush Etzion, the Gush, and extremely well-respected. So also one of Rabbi Jachter's mentors, I believe. So he says like this. Okay, just a minute. He says, now Rabbi, he says that Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein was just an amazing person. Like you appreciated him and revered him so much. This is what did he write? He said, is it here? Is this where he wrote it? No, I don't think I wrote it here. But that this person who was so amazing on so many levels, if this person believed in God, it was inspiring to make you at least want to search, because how could this person who was so brilliant and moved in the secular world as well as in the Jewish world, how could this person, be so wrong? At very least, it inspired you to search for it. So he said, the motto I inscribed in my college notebook was King David's plea. Tuv tam vadat lamdeni, ki b'mitzvotecha hemanti. Teach me good discernment and knowledge, for I have believed in your commandments. Answers, of course, I continued and continued to seek and found many, but what I asked from God is to help me go along the way. So what Rabbi Jachter says, we can all make the same decision. We can experience and encounter God if we are willing to invest the effort. Okay, there's so much more in this, but I think I need to move. Okay, I'll say this very quickly. Remember I told you there are those who experience God as it's obvious to them, and there are those who look for signs. Two different ways of believing in God. So Avraham Avinu, Abraham, he was the first one to discover God. Avraham Avinu, there's a midrash that says that at age 3 he discovered God. There's a midrash that says at age 4 he discovered God. There's a midrash that says at age 48. So Rabbi Jachter says, well, age 3 is that divine knowledge, meaning he looked around and he's like, there must be a God. As a matter of fact, many children, before they grow up and are kind of jaded, they automatically know. They have no problem believing. If you talk to children about God, they very often are like, well, yeah, that makes sense. that there's a God. They get it. They don't ask about it. But then between age 3 and 40, according to Rabbi ChaimJachter, he says it's a synthesis of that. He saw more and more and more marks and signs of God, and as an adult man, he was able to put these two together: the innate belief and seeing God, as well as seeing signs. Okay, I'm going to move on. So there's so much more in this first chapter. I'm just going to say 1 second. And he says at the end, the way you know that you believe in God, what is true emunah, proper belief, is when one trusts in Hashem and Hashem's Torah with the same conviction as you believe that the sun and moon exist. If you can believe in the same way, then you know you have proper emunah in God. And I'm not testing anybody. That's not the point. He's just describing what is emunah. Okay. Moving to the second, because there's 4 more chapters. So chapter 2 is the rational basis for belief. So he splits it. Oh, he says, this is where he said, it's important to clarify we do not seek to prove Hashem's existence because it is not a productive exercise. Now he offers 5 portals where rational belief in God makes sense. Okay. Like Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, who again is a great sage, states that it is obvious that there is a God given the high degree of order in the world. Common sense teaches it will be impossible for this to happen just spontaneously. Like, look at an exquisite painting. It would be absurd to say that it was created by a long series of fortunate coincidences. This reminds me of Bob Newhart. People here remember Bob Newhart? Very funny guy, really a funny comedian, very self-deprecating, and just never swore or used, raunchy language or, sex as his basis. He was just a funny guy. And I still remember hearing one of his, he says, people say, well, if you put 1,000 monkeys with 1,000 typewriters, then they had typewriters, in a room, they would write all of Shakespeare's plays, randomly. So he's like, okay, so I'm going to walk into a room. I'm going to call my coworker over to see. And he's like, hey, John, come over here. I think we got something. And he pulls out the piece of paper from this monkey's or ape from the typewriter and says, to be or not to be, that is the Gezornenplat. So, it really strikes home because you say even if small pieces of this could happen randomly, it's not going to be able to create something on that same level as the world, the tapestry of the world, as the exquisite painting, as the order of the sun and the moon. Think of how scary it is. Has anybody ever been in a full eclipse or seen one? It is wondrous and it's scary at the same time. That every time, even when I know it's coming, it's scary to me to see part of the sun covered and imagining, he's going to go on to that later as well, that if the sun was a few degrees more or a few degrees less, then the earth couldn't sustain itself. And how does everything be so perfect that this is the only planet that can actually sustain life? So that's one of them. So he says like this, philosophers traditionally refer to this type of proof as the argument from design, and that it has a manual. The world is God's greatest, or we think God's greatest venture, and the Torah is our manual of how to live our life. Okay. So he goes, so wait 1 second, that was portal 1, and then, okay, there's so much more, but I'm going to continue. Portal 2, the tradition, Nachmanides and the Kuzari. So what is portal 2? I'm in chapter 2, but there are 5 portals. Yeah. He calls them a portal. I don't know why. I thought that a portal, I guess, a way in to believing God. Mass revelation passed down year after year. In the other religions, I haven't checked this, but that it wasn't like we had where millions of Jews, there were 2 million Jews at least who left Egypt, right? If you think 600,000 men, 600,000 means 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, meaning there were also 600,000 women between the ages of 20 and 60. That's 1.2 million, and then there were older people and younger people, so figure at least 2 million. And that is one of our basic beliefs. That's what's in the Torah, and most people don't counter that. Like, no matter how many religious Jews argue about this halacha or that halacha or how it should be, everybody agrees that there was revelation in front of millions of people. Not only that, Every year we pass it down at the Passover Seder. We pass this down over millennia that this is what happened. So that's his number 2.
No, but if you just accept that. Does he
Yeah.
demonstrate how this happened?
I'm sorry, not exact. That's what he's saying. The fact that it is so accepted that there was mass revelation, why wasn't it refuted? We argue all the time. Why aren't people arguing, Jews arguing over whether it happened in front of everybody?
Maybe they are.
Not Orthodox Jews, that's for sure. All Orthodox Jews, and it's a huge spectrum, that is one of the basic things that defines Orthodoxy, is the belief in God, the belief that it was divinely given. Now, as I said, people here may not. He has so many more things that he brings, so different things might appeal to different people. But he uses that. He says this to him feels like one of the compelling reasons that we believe that the Torah comes from God, that is divinely given, that there is a God that gave it. Okay? Portal number 3, the Aruch HaShulchan's argument from Jewish history. Just the fact that we have survived. All odds are against the Jews. A small nation, wiped out or almost wiped out time after time after time after time after time after time. It makes no sense rationally that we are still here. If you look at history, it makes no sense. If one who ponders the wonders of Jewish history realizes that logic would have disappeared long ago, and again, this is what he quotes the Aruch HaShulchan, who says, he was Rabbi Yechiel Michal Epstein, a very well-known, he put together he was rabbi of a pulpit rabbi, and he also wrote an amazing compendium of halacha, very easy to read, and it's how we should live our life as Orthodox people. There's no greater sign and proof than our survival of nearly 2,000 years of exile. The only reason for our survival is because of Hashem's providence, that is not removed from us even for a moment, like a father watches over his only child and chastises him for the latter's benefit. So that's for people, but the whole nation is still here. That is, and anybody here know Mark Twain's? Mark Twain has an amazing quote of it. People heard that? It's really beautiful. Should I read it? I can read it if you okay.
Yeah.
If the statistics are right, the Jews constitute but 1% of the human race. It suggests a nebulous, dim puff of stardust lost in the blaze of the Milky Way. Properly, the Jew ought to hardly be heard of, but he is heard of and has always been heard of. He is as prominent on the planet as any other people, and his commercial importance is extravagantly out of proportion to the smallness of his bulk. This is Mark Twain. His contributions to the world's list of great names in literature, science, art, music, finance, medicine, and abstruse, I don't know what that word is, abstruse learning, are also way out of proportion to the weakness of his numbers. He, the Jew, has made a marvelous fight in the world in all the ages and has done it with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain and be excused. The Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, and faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed, made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other peoples have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but have burned out, and they sit in twilight now or have vanished. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal, but the Jew, all other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of the Jew's immortality? Mark Twain concerning the Jews, Harper's Magazine. That's what I said, is that he takes from so many different, he quotes Aristotle and Plato as well. Religious Jews understand that divine providence is a secret of our immortality. Okay, this is what he puts out. Portal 4, this is Rav Soloveitchik. Halacha is the most compelling reason to believe. One must be overwhelmed by its beauty and would see that it is the finest prescription for fulfilling and rich life, and that God gave it to us for our good. There's a story about the Rav that he was sitting Shiva for the Rav Soloveitchik. He was sitting Shiva for his wife, parent, sibling, I don't know. And he was by himself, and his students came in and found him learning Torah. Now, during Shiva, you're not supposed to learn Torah because it brings joy. That is the reason we don't learn Torah or halacha, except halachot having to do with mourning. So during Shiva, he shouldn't have been learning it. So a student said to him, Rabbi, Rav, how could you be learning? And he said he just couldn't keep himself from it. He said, And when I go up to heaven, if God holds me to task for learning during Shiva, I'm willing to accept that. So that's how much he loved halacha. Okay. He also says only Orthodox Judaism withstands the test of time. It's an interesting thing. I'm continuing. I'm just rushing through because there's so much more. Portal 5, fulfilled prophecies. There are numerous examples of Torah promises that have been fulfilled and that were written hundreds or thousands of years before it happened. And he has many, many examples of that, like coming back to Israel, the Jews flourishing, that we're a bracha, blessing to the nations, and we see by so many things that we Jews have been able to come up with, inventions and other things, and that we have been a blessing to the nation. I'm not saying we're perfect, but that we have been. And then he has a whole other half where he brings up textual and theological problems and offers many, many classical approaches from different sages. But I am going to have to skip because I am going now to chapter 3, belief in the 21st century. Okay, that's where I stopped taking notes because there were too many notes to take. Okay. Since the time of Aristotle, educated Jews have grappled with apparent contradictions between divinely authored Torah, and information that we get from the world created by God. Now, there are many, right? That's the bumping up between science and Torah, which, by the way, I gave once, I think, as also modern Jewish thinker, Rabbi Sachs, who wrote a book on that. Maimonides had one approach. He said the Torah never contradicts an established fact. When faced with a seeming contradiction between Torah and assertions made by scientists, we have two options. Either the scientists are incorrect, or the manner in which we interpret the Torah is incorrect, or both. And many times, okay, so for example, the creation of the world by the Big Bang, that was not believed for many years, and that was science. But then in the 1960s, two scientists discovered and proved to the world by detecting radiation, whatever it is, that there was some sort of Big Bang that started it, and to us, the Big Bang is God creating the world. Their discovery changed humanity's understanding of our universe to include a definitive beginning of our world in accordance to Torah's views. Okay, one second. There were differing approaches to resolving the conflicts. I'm just going to give you a few of them. Don't really have time to give you. One second. Let me see. I think I have a... Okay, so he brings, for example, Maimonides was willing to reinterpret Torah passages in an allegorical sense if they conflicted with scientific fact. Rabbi Abraham ben Moshe ben Maimon, I think that's Rambam's son, regarded Chazal, the sages' statements about the natural world, based on the best information available at the time and subject to revision. Rabbi Meiselman, who, by the way, I know Rabbi Moshe Meiselman, also part of the Rav's family, a very great thinker. He received also a doctorate from Harvard University in anthropology and something like that. He rejects any attempt to reinterpret the Torah in light of scientific theory, like the age of the universe. And Rabbi Slifkin, people heard of him? He's what we call the zoo rabbi. He's a contemporary, and he's written beautiful books about nature and about how natural objects and laws written in the Torah and in the whole Tanakh actually are resolved according to real nature. He holds that the Torah is basically a guide for human conduct, does not need to be reconciled with scientific findings at all. And another way, one second. But others argue that the Torah is in complete harmony with modern science. So what else can I tell you about that? For example, the whole idea of having 6 days of creation when really there were millions or billions of years. So one person says, one of the Midrashim says that God created many, many worlds before our world. So maybe that's what it was. Except that somebody else says, but those worlds were destroyed. Oh, oops, so that won't work. But one of the most common ones, which makes sense to me, is that each day in the 6 days of creation was not a 24-hour day that we measure days. It was an era, whatever eras are, Jurassic Age, what all those things. And that makes the most sense, meaning that the Torah condensed millions of years into the 6 days of creation. So it doesn't refute it at all. It just says that the Torah wasn't interested in spending a lot of time on what happened in all of those millions of years, but it doesn't contradict. Everybody with me on this? The idea behind this? Okay. Just see what else. And he brings discrepancies and resolves each one according to what he collects. For example, the age of man. There's a discrepancy in the Torah and science about the age of man. So he gives answers to that, which I don't have time to explain to you, but I want to tell you what he addresses. And then he gives a really, really serious deep dive into archaeology in the Tanakh and understanding how to resolve that as well. Okay, that's chapter 3. Chapter 4 is discovering Hashem in today's world. While Tanakh records many overtly miraculous events, to many people it seems that there are no miracles in our time, and this perception causes them to doubt the occurrence of the biblical Tanakhic miracles. However, it overlooks the fact that there is more than one kind of miracle. Okay, everybody with me? Like, we would expect that if God is in the world, we would see more miracles. So, again, the Aruch HaShulchan, he distinguishes between 3 types of divine intervention and the corresponding expressions of gratitude we owe God for each. One is miracles that contravene, is that contradict? Yeah, they intervene with contradiction. The laws of nature, such as those involved with Exodus from Egypt, like the plagues, I guess, and the crossing, the splitting of the sea. And they demand the recital. There's a special blessing, Sha'asanes, one who has made a miracle. That's one kind. Overt, big miracles. In the Modim blessing of the Amidah, people familiar with the Amidah? Modim anachnu lach, we are thankful to you, God. We thank Hashem for the routine miracles, such as earning a livelihood and everyday survival. You know, do we owe gratitude to something or someone or some entity for just being able to exist in this world? For just waking up every morning? People know that the first prayer we say in the morning is Modani or Moda'ani for male or female. We thank God for giving us back our soul because we say that sleep is 1/60th of death. And something changes when we're sleeping. We're not aware of our surroundings in some way. And are we grateful to God for our existence? That is a different kind of miracle. That is an ongoing, that is the still, small, quiet voice called Dmama Daka. The third one is Birkat HaGomel. Anybody here said Birkat HaGomel if they were in a life-threatening situation and were able to survive? It could be a car accident. It could be many other things. There was a girl who went for 12 days and ended up being stuck in Israel for the Iran war. When she came back with the war with Iran, and when she came back, she asked to say Birkat HaGomel in Shul because she honestly felt her life was in danger and it was saved. Some people say all of Israel should say Birkat HaGomel, those who survived. Not everybody survived, sadly. Very small number didn't. Okay, and here's an amazing, oh my God, it's 11 o'clock, give me 5 more minutes. This is going to be its own shiur because he compares Megillat Esther, the book of Esther, and how God is hidden there and made things happen to the existence of the state of Israel. It's an amazing comparison, and because I read it, I was just in awe. I spent an hour reading just that. I have every other word is practically underlined or starred or asterisk. I'm going to give a shiur on that, I think, when it comes to time for Megillat Esther, because it's just a beautiful, beautiful comparison. So I'm going to have to skip all of that. And then he adds things like hidden miracles that we have to discover. Does anybody here want to give a suggestion of a hidden miracle that happened to them that they were aware of, that they saw? Anything? Anybody have an idea? Anybody? Okay. I want to read a beautiful little story that the Baal Shem Tov said. Once while walking in the forest, though deep in thought and meditation, the Baal Shem Tov, people heard of him? The author, the big Chassidut, many beautiful stories. He heard a child crying. Following the cry, the Baal Shem Tov finally found a little boy, frightened and shivering in the dark. Why are you here in the forest all by yourself? He asked the child gently. Looking into the man's kind face, the child was calmed. I was playing hide and seek with my friends. I waited and waited for them to find me, but none of them discovered me. Now it is dark. They've all gone home. I am alone and frightened. And with that, the boy began to cry again. Do not cry, little boy. I will bring you home, comforted the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov explained that this incident is truly a metaphor for God and the Jews. Since our beginning as a people, we have actively searched for God and sought out a meaningful relationship with God. Even when we were exiled from our land and God was forced to hide God's self by not being overtly there in the temples, we still sincerely searched for God. But now God, like the lost child, cries, I wait and wait for you, Israel, to look for me, to find the inherent godliness and holiness in everything you do. But it seems that you, Israel, have become tired of the search. In the darkness of today's world, in the confusion of the forest of your mundane lives and material aspirations, you have all gone home, and I, God, am alone. The last chapter is about 3 difficult halachic sequences that are put out that we find hard to understand, like the killing of a whole nation called Amalek. How could that be resolved? The destroying of a full city that is following idol worship. How can we resolve that? And the mamzerim. And the book of Job, he goes through that as well. So he goes through that and explains that if you're searching, you could easily dismiss it and say, well, this doesn't make sense. I don't care about the Torah. Or you can grapple with it. You can research it. So he did that for us. He collated all these different, so if you're looking for answers to burning questions that you've always had about how can I believe in God.
Like the Holocaust.
Like the Holocaust, exactly. Thank you, Edith. Exactly. So, I mean, he put together many beautiful answers and ways, but it all starts with wanting to search for it. One cannot find something if one does not engage in a sincere and earnest search, like Abraham and Sarah. Rabbi Soloveitchik said, a Jew must be a seeker of God. Uvikashtem misham et Hashem Elokecha.
Why does he allow October 7th?
Correct. So there's no answers to the why. You know that, Edith. There's never an answer. The answer is not lama, and people who have made their peace with things like the Holocaust. So I have that as well. I actually marked that section. They don't spend their time asking why because they'll never have an answer. But they ask lima. What can I do to move on? Can I create families? What can I offer the world? What can I offer my family? What can I offer the Jewish people? How can I continue to be a light? It's not about why. We'll never understand God. We'll never understand God's reasons. Sometimes we look back and we see something. I wouldn't say we'll ever see that for October 7th or the Shoah. But
So
but
do we
that-
call that Hester Panim?
yes, Hester Panim, when God hides God's face. So the question is, where do we find God? And really his main message is, read if you have questions, but continue to search for God. Don't give up. And he just lays out many different arguments. And it's as if he's saying we're layered with layers and layers that are
Hi.
of noise. Of noise. Debbie, I'm putting you on mute. Layers and layers of noise. It's so hard to get underneath. Imagine your neshama, your soul, is this beautiful, pristine soul that is yearning for God, whatever color you imagine it, or translucent or sparkly. But it's so covered by doubts and questions and things you've heard from so many people and so many things, or maybe hard things that happen to you or that you see in the world. But the question is, are you finding peace? Somebody who finds peace, they may not search. But if you're not feeling peaceful and if you still have the questions, then there is room to search. And don't ever give up searching.
And is he saying the search will bring you closer to Hashem?
100%. The search will bring you closer and connect you. It's the binds that tie you and connect you, not bind you, but they bound you or bind you in a warm way.
Yeah, but I hear him, and
so with so
wanna
much more in
believe
here,
that.
I couldn't,
know,
I
but
spent 6 or 8 hours reading the book and
the
marking.
tragedies that we see,
So
like
hard.
the most recent one in Manhattan,
So hard. So the question is, where does that speak to you that you say there's no God, or does it speak to you that I'm bewildered and I don't understand, or
Yeah.
does it say to you there's no God?
no, it doesn't tell me that because I believe of my.
But you believe, right? But sometimes we need some solace from somewhere It's it's very hard.
Very
All
hard.
of this is hard. That woman was, I mean, there were 2 Jewish people
Both,
killed.
yeah.
Both amazing,
All of
wonderful
them.
people. Yep. Just randomly by a horrible, sick person, sick, however that person was sick, who believed that he could take people's lives just randomly as he wishes and making some horrible mark in this world. It's an awful thing.
Horrible.
Okay, we need to end on a little bit of a higher note. Let's see. Ozi vezimratia vayehi li lishua. Ozi vezimratia vayehi li lishua. God is my strength and my song, and God will be a salvation for me. Ozi וזמרתיה ויהי לי לישועה. I hope people were inspired to continue searching, continue learning, continue finding joy in the learning, the searching, and the observance of whatever brings you joy, or however you decide to practice your Judaism. He lays out many reasons, as I said, rational, experiential. I just gave you a taste of the topics that he addresses, and then the answers, of course, in here. And I hope that it inspires you to continue learning, continue finding connection, and to continue looking for God. I'll give you one story that somebody, there was a time in my life when I didn't feel God's presence. And I felt very lonely and felt almost not rejected, but like either God, I don't know. I felt very, very far away, and like maybe God didn't approve of me or what I was doing. And somebody gave me this parable, which still speaks to me. And she said to me, imagine it's Erev Shabbat, and you're in Bnei Brak. So Bnei Brak has narrow streets, and most of the people are observant and rushing around, trying to get ready for Shabbat, going to the bakery, going to there, going to, and they're all saying, Shabbat Shalom to each other, and there's so much going on, and you're holding your father's hand, and then all of a sudden, you don't see him, and you look around, and all you see is a busy street. He's waiting for you on the next corner. You're the one who let go for a moment to look at what's around you. But his hand is still there, outstretched, waiting for you. And I believe that with every fiber of my being.
Mhm. Beautiful.
All right, my friends. I love you.
Thank you.
Wishing you a meaningful
you.
rest of the 9 days. Tisha B'Av. Reach out if you have
Amen.
any questions.
Easy
Thank you for
fast.
joining us. Meaningful,
What's the name of the
easy.
book?
Oh, the
please?
book is called Rabbi ChaimJachter, Reason to Believe.
Reason to Believe. Thank you.
Of course, I would say 1,000 reasons to believe, but that's what he called
Barbara,
it.
you can get it on Amazon.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
You won't get it, though, with all my underlines and asterisks
No, I
and
know that.
ellipses and,
Wait, one
and my
very
Post-its.
quick question.
Yeah,
How
Ruby
long,
says you got to pay extra for that.
how long does it take to become a Dayan?
Oh, I thought you were going to say how long does it take to read the book?
No.
Oh, a
I'm just
while,
curious.
because you have to, a few years, I think, because you have
A
to
few
really
years.
learn.
Okay.
You have to learn all of the minutia of halakha, and you get tested.
Wow.
Not simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal. All right, my
Thank you.
friends, be well.
Okay,
Shabbat
thank you.
shalom.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.